to right. This one's on a line to the warning track, to the wall. It's gone. Oh, and Robbie Big Fly has number one. A 3-run home run for Rob Calabrese. In the season of first, the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters are officially your Northwoods League South Division first half champions. Good evening, Rafter fans, and welcome to Witter Field for the Rafters and the Eau Claire Express in Game 1 of the Summer Collegiate World Series. We're on our way to deciding a Northwoods League champion, as this is Cooper Perkins welcoming you aboard. I'm joined by my video producer turned co-host, Sam Jellinek. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. No better place to be in Wisconsin Rapids right now, is there?
Oh, you betcha. So last night we had the night off. We had a break between Tuesday and Thursday as these two teams got an opportunity to recover a little bit. The Rafters, after wins over the Lakeshore Chinooks and Battle Creek Bombers, now represent the South Division. On the other side, the Eau Claire Express have come on top of the Mankato Moondogs and most recently the St. Cloud Rocks. So a team that the Rafters have seen 4 times already this season graces them with their presence one more time at Witter Field. And again tomorrow night for certain. We don't know about Game 3. It is if necessary. How have we gotten to this point?
Well, Eau Claire is pretty lucky to be here at this point. They handled Mankato pretty well, and then against St. Cloud, they dominated for the first 8 innings of the game, leading 3-0 into the ninth. Ninth inning rolls around, St. Cloud ends up tying the game up, had a chance to win it in the bottom half of the ninth, but was unable to pull through. And eventually, Eau Claire was able to, in the 11th inning, put up 5 runs, and then win the game 8-3.
Well, you mentioned that they were in control over Mankato and that they played well against St. Cloud for the most part. And I think the theme here, something that we talked about in other pregame shows, good pitching beats good hitting, and Eau Claire has ridden that all the way to the championship series.
Yeah, against Mankato, only giving up 1 run, and then against St. Cloud, throwing shutout ball for 8 innings, then giving up a 3 spot, and then holding them scoreless until the 11th, where they only gave up 1 more run. Their pitching has been fantastic through the playoffs, and that's why they're here.
It hasn't been limited to their starting pitching, though. They had the one bullpen letdown against St. Cloud, but that is a true outlier. They still won the game. For Eau Claire, we talked about this off the air before coming on. They've been exceptional when leading after 6 innings. They're a team that has milked leads. They've played from in front, and they haven't given leads away by and large. They did against St. Cloud. They still recovered to win the ball game. It's something that you have to feel will factor into this ball game and the rest of the series.
For Eau Claire, when they're leading after 6 innings, they're 38-3. So basically, once you get to that point, it's game over. It's going to come down to this game, who can grab an early lead and then hold on to it, because the Rafters are also a team that does not give up leads late in the ball game.
Well, you bring up the Rafters. Now, our listeners are a little bit more familiar naturally. They've been aboard with us through the playoffs and the entirety of the Northwoods League season. They beat Battle Creek to get here in a game that at the very beginning felt like it might be a little bit more competitive than it ended up being. The Rafters methodically pulled away. They won 7-3. They scored in 6 consecutive innings, and really by the end of things had the game under control. That's been the story for them through the playoffs. They've been in control. They absolutely handled the Lakeshore Chinooks 19-3. They scored the first 19 runs of that ball game. They had a little bit of resistance up front from Battle Creek, but didn't allow it to shake them, and they came out on top really with plenty of room to work with. You have to think that this is a different matchup for them, though.
Oh, it absolutely is. The 4 games that the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters played against the Express this year, I believe the final line total was 21-20 in favor of the Rafters. So this is going to be a tight series throughout. All 4 games that the Rafters and Express played were exceptional ball games.
Well, they played in 2 separate doubleheaders, one on June the 29th and one on August the 1st. Carson Park, also Witter Field, and both times they split in almost identical fashion. The Rafters lost Game 1 but won Game 2. It'll be interesting to see how this comes up, because we talked about this at that time. I talked about it in the broadcast on August the 1st. This was going to be a possible preview of the Summer Collegiate World Series. We tried to heighten the interest of our viewers and our listeners, and it's come to fruition. We have these 2 clubs again on the ball diamond. They will square off for Game 1 tonight. It's a little bit different for the Rafters, though. They got excellent pitching in Game 1 and Game 2. Eric Ligda in Game 2 was excellent. Tonight they're going to flip things around and throw a left-hander in Gareth Stroh. Take me through what Ligda did that made him so successful and what Gareth Stroh needs to do tonight.
What Eric Ligda did so well, really after the first inning when he left a splitter up in the zone, is he kept everything down. The splitter was fantastic, working it from the knees and lower, and then working in with the fastball to keep guys off balance. And the most important part was he did walk a few guys, but he stayed aggressive out on the bump. He made sure not to let the playoff pressure really impact him, and he just focused on trying to make sure that he could control the Bombers' offense.
He did a good job of that. We were wondering how long we would see him on the mound and how short that leash was. It turned out he had a little bit more slack than I think I maybe expected. He gave up the 2 runs in the first. It was only 1 bad pitch, but after that, by and large, he did settle down, and he gave the Rafters quality innings. He allowed them to bridge things all the way to Blair Laxo and Garrett Schilling. The 2 of them closed out the final 3 frames and were dominant in the process. It'll be a similar formula tonight, you'd have to think. We'll talk a little bit more about the pitching matchup when we get to that point in the second half of our broadcast, but looking at the theme for the Rafters all season, it'll carry into tonight. It's been their bullpen.
Oh, yeah, completely. In the game against the Bombers, you mentioned Blair Laxo and Garrett Schilling came in to really slam the door shut. It was 3 innings, 2 by Laxo, 1 by Schilling, and 6 strikeouts. There was never any really resistance from the Bombers in those 2 innings, in those 3 innings, rather, and you just felt like this game was in hand for the Rafters.
And now those 2 guys have both had an evening off. The Rafters did not play on Wednesday, so the 2 of them have both had the opportunity to refresh themselves. Their arms are good to go. They'll be able to pitch back-to-back nights if needed. So tonight and tomorrow, nothing hindering them by Northwoods League rules. You have to think, though, in order for the Rafters to get a lead early, they have to be patient at the plate with Luke Summers on the mound.
Oh, and definitely. Right now, Summers, his strikeout to walk is 23 walks to 22 strikeouts. That's not a very good sign for a Rafters team that loves to draw walks.
Well, the Rafters have seen Luke Summers before, not in a starting capacity. He hasn't started much this season in general, but they did see him the last time the Express were here in the second half of that doubleheader. The Rafters won the game 11-8. And Luke Summers pitched well for the most part. He gave up a couple of inherited runners that don't show up in the box score. But for the most part, he was pretty good. A little bit over 3 innings. He struck out a couple of batters and didn't really allow much slack to the Rafters as they quieted after the exit of the starter on that afternoon.
And what the Rafters have to do is look back to that appearance by Summers and try and look and see what did he do so well against us that made it very hard for the Rafters to get base knocks and score runs. Look back at it, adjust, and try and put that out in the field tonight.
We'll take a quick timeout here on WFHR 1320 AM. As soon as we come back, we'll talk about the other half of this pitching matchup. We'll talk about Gareth Stroh. We'll go through our lineups, and then we'll make our picks as to what needs to happen for the Rafters to win Game 1 of the Northwoods League Summer Collegiate World Series as you're listening to Rafters Pregame on WFHR 1320, WFHR.com, and the TuneIn Radio app. Welcome back to Rafters Pregame. This is Cooper Perkins and Sam Jellinek welcoming you back to Witter Field. Rafters in Eau Claire Express for the 5th time this season. An uncanny familiarity between these 2 teams. Not often that you see a pair of opposite division teams have as much exposure to one another as these 2 clubs do. That's how it shakes out, but the Rafters sending Gareth Stroh to the mound, a left-hander who the Express have not seen this season.
And that's going to be a really big part for Stroh that the Express haven't seen him. It's going to take them a few innings to feel him out, try and see where his stuff lies. Stroh really likes a 3-pitch mix of fastball, changeup, and curveball. And lately, as we saw in his last start, the changeup was exceptional. Helped him to get 9 strikeouts and dominate.
We talked to him after the game, actually, and asked him where the changeup came from. And his answer was absolutely delightful. His response was essentially, I don't know what happened. It just kind of clicked one day. I've been working with Coach Alama, and then at some point it just got good. And I think that Gareth Stroh kind of in a nutshell. He's a pitcher who has been supremely talented since day one, and things have just begun to click with him at moments that don't have a whole lot of rhyme or reason to them. He goes out and he strikes out 9 his last time out. At the beginning of the season, he was utterly dominant for 2 starts, then a little bit of a lull in the middle. Since adding the changeup to that repertoire, though, he's been back on top.
And one thing I really like about Stroh was even in those stretches where he was a little bit down, he was always throwing strikes. And that's going to be a really big factor for him tonight. In a playoff scenario, the pressure looks like it's not going to get to him. He will just continue to throw strikes and quality strikes as of late.
Well, you look at his strike percentage breakdown, and those first 3 starts are almost concerning with how many strikes he was throwing. You look at his 3rd start of the season against Madison, where he really got pushed around a bit. He was throwing almost 78% of his pitches into the strike zone. That is too much. You're looking for somewhere in the 60 to 65% range, which seems a bit low, but when you consider the process of trying to keep hitters off balance and sequencing, 78% is just too high. Since then, he's dialed it back. He went through a stretch in the middle of the season where he was trying to figure out how to throw those quality strikes that are pitches who maybe look like they will be strikes, but in fact end up outside of the strike zone. He's upticked a bit lately, but kind of averaged out right in the middle, 67, 68%. He's been good. He's been catching guys looking, but he's also been getting a lot of swings and misses.
Oh, especially with that changeup. Changeup, he's been throwing it, starting it at the knees, letting it work its way down to the ankles, and guys just have not been able to touch it. It's got fantastic depth and movement on it, and it will be a real key for him to dominate the Express lineup tonight.
I think something that's going to be a huge factor for him and for this game at large is his ability to control Eau Claire's lineup because of the way they've hit left-hand pitching this season. Looking through the numbers, they're some 20 points better against left-handed pitchers. You look at Alex McKenna specifically, 410 on the season with 5 home runs. He has absolutely feasted on southpaws. For Gareth Stroh, though, he's been good against left-handers. The .222 opponent batting average. He's only given up 1 of his 6 home runs against left-handed batters. So Eau Claire is a lineup that does a good job of kind of mixing things up, and they're able to find balance. You look at a couple of options like Mickey McDonald, who can flip around and switch hit. You have to think that Stroh will have to keep these guys off balance. The changeup will be a huge factor. How does he control this lineup that hits left-handers so well, though?
It's going to be extremely interesting because the typical school of thought with a left-hander on the mound facing a left-handed hitter is you don't go with the changeup because it moves into the hitter a little bit easier for them to see. It'll be interesting whether or not Stroh decides to stick with the changeup because there are guys in the major leagues who do it, guys like Cole Hamels with exceptional changeups. Now, of course, Stroh isn't in that echelon, but he could go that same route and try and get left-handed hitters out with the changeup or go back to the curveball.
Well, he found some answers against a couple of teams who both are right-hand heavy recently. In his last start against Kalamazoo, they were almost exclusively right-handed, and Rockford before that a little bit more balanced with, just before them, Lakeshore, who is almost exclusively right-handed. His last 4 starts, he's 3-0 at .225 ERA and 27 strikeouts. So it just goes to show you that he's been able to keep both sides of the plate off balance. Eau Claire, though, has been that good against left-handed pitching. They're 20-8 against left-handed starters. You have to think that the Raptors need to offer him some run support tonight. And
it's going to have to get started early. I had mentioned before that Eau Claire has been, once they grab an early lead, they don't let it go. They're 38-3 leading after 6. The Raptors are a very similar team that when they score first, they tend to win the game. And in a series like this that is going to be an absolute dogfight, they're going to have to get on the board first and hold on to it.
We'll take a quick look at the lineup to give you an idea of what to expect from this Raptors team tonight. It's much of the same that you've seen so far through the first 2 playoff games, just one major change to note. Rob Calabrese moves from left field behind the plate. He stays in the number 3 hole. Ben Fisher moves from first base to left field, and now at first base will be Max Widmar, as Scott Capers not available for the ballgame tonight. But you have Richie Palacios leading off. He's at shortstop just as he's been in the first 2 games. Jake Lumley batting second and playing second base. He's been a gamer for the Raptors. It seems like every time he's come up in this playoff run to this point, he's hit the ball well. It's not always resulted in base hits, but he has slapped the ball to all fields, and he's come up with some pretty solid contact consistently.
And as Lumley goes, the Raptors offense goes. He's an extremely key cog in this Raptors lineup, and when he gets on base, that allows the guys in the middle of the order to be able to drive him in.
As I mentioned in passing a moment ago, Rob Calabrese, who has been absolutely white-hot batting third, he'll be catching as well. So we'll see how his approach at the plate continues with a little bit more to think about. He's now calling the game. He's handling the pitchers and trying to think about how to attack this Eau Claire lineup. So he has a little bit more on his mind than normal, but he's been the hottest bat in the lineup.
Oh, he's been absolutely fantastic so far in the playoffs. He's been hitting the ball hard every time he's up, especially with runners in scoring position. But like you said, he'll be catching tonight, and this is an Eau Claire team that loves to run.
Absolutely. Joe Wainhouse will bat 4th. He's DHing just as he has all playoffs. As I mentioned, Ben Fisher in left field. He'll bat 5th. They need some hits from him. Just 6 for his last 36 at-bats, including the playoffs. But he's been streaky all season long. At a certain point, he'll turn it around just as he has. And usually when he does come out of a slump, it's in a big way. Brett Thompson bats 6th and plays right field. Brandon Palizzi is in center field and batting 7th. Max Widmar gets the start at first base and will bat 8th. And Andrew Turner rounds out the starting 9 as he'll play 3rd and bat 9th. Gareth Stroh is on the bump for the Raptors as he'll be faced by Jake Summers. We'll head to one more commercial break and then come back with first pitch as you've been listening to Rafters Pregame on WFHR 1320 AM, WFHR.com, and the TuneIn Radio app.